Hello and welcome to the fifth. Is it the fifth? I honestly really don't care. But nevertheless, welcome to whatever episode this is of Park Week, a series of reviews dedicated to every film in what was for many years my favorite franchise of all time, Jurassic. Today, we will be discussing the fifth entry in this series, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom from 2018. If you do not count the 3D re-release of Jurassic Park for the 20th anniversary back in 2013. This, incidentally, is the first and probably the last Jurassic film that I saw in cinemas. And back then, being of the defensive stance of, I don't necessarily like what they're doing with these world films and all that, and I will always stand by the original trilogy as just these immaculate pieces of art that people too foully derogate. The trailers, honestly, in my estimation back then, looked promising, and I was thinking, perhaps, maybe, this could be an improvement from Jurassic World. Of course, speaking as a rather stubborn and closed-minded 15 or 16, actually back then it was around 18-year-old. And so my brother and I went to watch it, and I've discussed this before, how I wrote in my journal, because at the time I was journaling because I had just gotten out of high school and wanted to sort of document my life after it. I've since ceased journaling for whatever reason, mainly because it was taking too much time, and I have other things really to be getting on with. I may actually resume journaling here soon because, for me, life's about to begin. I remembered writing down right after I saw it, that was as dumb as a sack of stones and half as bright. And consequently, I did not revisit it for about 8 years, 7 or 8 years after I saw it initially. Obviously, with my discovery of a copy of Jurassic World at that rummage sale about, a year or so ago, and my reappraisal of that film is sort of just a book of clay, not a book of gold, I, of course, was compelled to revisit this film as well. And I am going to endeavor to conceal my anger as much as I can throughout this particular review. And it is my hope that this particular review will be a short one. When I decided to re-watch this film in preparation for this review, I did not have access to it via streaming. I had seen it about 6 months prior on Netflix, and at the time, it had just been taken off. And so, what I decided to do was to buy a copy on Amazon for $8.99, with the hope of just seeing it once and then returning it, because, you'll find out why that is. Unfortunately, it seems that God wants me to keep this film because while I was able to get a refund for my purchase, I am unable to return this film. You know, it's actually quite fitting that the initials of this film are JWFK. I'm going to say it again, JWFK. Because fuck this movie up its ass! And I'm aware that, yes, I did swear right there, and really, as a Christian, you kind of shouldn't swear. In this case, I feel entirely justified because, well, it is my belief that as a Christian, there are two instances in which profanity is permissible. One, in which you injure yourself, and two, in which you find yourself being angry and just cannot contain it. And this film made me angry. Very much. And we'll get into why that is in the body of the review. I'm going to get the good out of the way first, because obviously with this series I've been trying to find some good in basically all of these movies, and this is honestly the only one in which it's really been difficult for me to find really anything good about. But the opening, I would say, about the first 5 or 6 minutes or so, when they're retrieving the sample of the Indominus Rex and are being chased off the island in the rain and what have you, the opening, I would say, is on a par with those of the original three, and actually is quite an impressive sequence itself. Additionally, going for a darker tone than its predecessor is commendable, and is honestly reflective of what The Lost World did in following up with Jurassic Park. So that itself is noteworthy. The score, in some instances, provides some necessary tension. It's not quite as good as Giacchino's previous score to Jurassic World, but, you know, there are some instances where, you know, it does fit the scenario rather well. And every once in a while, particularly around 31 minutes 47 seconds, an hour and 4 minutes 52 seconds, an hour and 11 minutes and 3 seconds, an hour and 24 minutes and 35 seconds, an hour and 36 minutes and 45 seconds, an hour 41 minutes and 25 seconds, and finally, this is probably the prime example of this, an hour and 48 minutes and 36 seconds. There is indeed a very nice looking shot in this picture. So, yes, contrary to my initial ire at the beginning of this review, there are some things that I do like in this picture. And, you know, I suppose it's mainly worth watching just for those things there. Because what I don't like is pretty much everything else. The volcano, while yes, it's present in the original novel, is brought up suddenly, and you're thinking, what in the hell? This wasn't here before, even though the island, particularly Isla Sorna itself, was powered by geothermal power, what have you. It didn't necessarily state a volcano, but it just comes out of nowhere, and you're thinking, all right, this is just a cheap excuse to get the story going and to basically destroy the island. So, what the hell? Remember how I said that in my Jurassic World review, how Claire, Opie's daughter, had said to the kids, Zach and Gray, I will never leave you for as long as you live. Well, not according to this picture, because those kids are never mentioned or brought up again. And she's just part of this dinosaur protection group, which is essentially Nick Van Owen on steroids, trying to recoup her loss of the previous film. And you're just thinking, you know, the previous film itself was really pointless at the end of the day. Why are we watching this? And when the plot actually does get moving, and when she evidently is tasked to go to this mansion up in Northern California, this thing really did infuriate me at 12 minutes and 58 seconds. John Hammond, you see a little painted portrait of him hanging in the foyer, and it looks very nice and what have you, and it's mentioned that his name is John Alfred Hammond. For anyone who is even marginally familiar with this franchise, they would know that it's John Parker Hammond. John Parker Hammond. So they're just ignoring canon all this time. And the guy who mentions that, this villain, this Eli Mills character, I swear it seems like they wanted Ryan Reynolds for this part, but couldn't get Ryan Reynolds. So they got some guy who looks and acts like Ryan Reynolds, but isn't Ryan Reynolds. Just get Ryan Reynolds. He probably would have done it. And just adding on to the fact that this film really seems to bring up stuff out of nowhere, really just pulls it out of its ass, frankly. Benjamin Lockwood, this supposed business partner that Hammond had, who is, I suppose, sort of this film's version of Norman Atherton in the novel. Where did he come from? He was never hinted at in not just the original trilogy, but even in the previous film. So it's like, what are you doing here? Man, honestly. And it's also confusing because does Isla Sorna exist or not? Because you mentioned Sorna in this film, but then all of a sudden you have this sanctuary that you're going to set aside for these dinosaurs with the original island being destroyed. So you're thinking, okay, why not just send them to Sorna? Does it not exist anymore? What in earth's going on here? And this is also more just really weird stuff. At 14 minutes and 47 seconds in, you often wonder, did the Lost World even happen? Because this Lockwood fellow, played by James Cromwell, I believe, is quoting Hammond's lines, "These creatures don't need our protection, they need our absence." Which completely goes against the conceit of Jurassic World, where essentially this Masrani fellow went against the wishes of Hammond and just basically made the park for, it seems, really a quick buck. So did it happen or didn't it? What the hell? And speaking on the Lost World itself, this film really, apart from a lot of the sort of novel elements in there that really don't seem to be anyplace else, is essentially a remake of The Lost World, which I would rather be effing watching at this. You want to know something? Really, at the end, I'd rather be watching the Velocipasta at the end of the day, because at least then you have a kind of semi-interesting story, some kind of interesting gore bits. You actually can laugh at the feature for being so bad it's good, and Aurelio Voltaire. Those are four things going for the Velocipasta that this film doesn't have. And so, therefore, oh my goodness me. But yeah, it's basically just a remake of The Lost World, essentially, taking these dinosaurs off the island, except there's a ticking clock in there, and it's just, really, I don't understand it very much at all. When Claire gets Owen to go along with her on this venture at 18 minutes and 21 seconds. You're thinking, is that the same bar from Jurassic Park 3? If you look very carefully, is that really the same bar where Grant met the Kirbys and such, what have you, and the Randy Newman song was playing? Some different songs playing there. But you're thinking, is that the same place? I don't know. Let me know if it is or isn't. I honestly don't care at this stage. It may well be. Who knows? And this may sound strange the way I'm doing it, but I took these notes as I was watching the film, and basically as I was watching the film, just these really odd moments just stuck out to me to where they became impossible to ignore. When Owen's viewing old footage of himself training these raptors, it doesn't look like old footage. It looks like the rest of the film. You know, as much as you want to criticize Jurassic Park 3, and even if my review of it didn't convince you that it is a wonderful film, at least Jurassic Park 3 knew how to make old footage look like old footage. But the rest of the picture. So they go along to Isla Nubla to basically rescue all these species and such, and they are sort of under the guard of this man, this Ken Wheatley fellow, who evidently is played by the same actor who was in Silence of the Lambs as Buffalo Bill. I've not seen Silence of the Lambs. Most recently, I saw the Hallmark Entertainment adaptation of Moby Dick, where he played Starbuck. And honestly, he does a better job in that film than this film, because basically this Ken Wheatley fella, he's essentially Roland Tembo with no heart and a tooth fetish. He wants his bonus. He makes that abundantly clear throughout the film that he wants his bonus. And it's just, we've seen this before. And why are we retreading this old ground? And when they actually get on the island and you see the brachiosaur basically sort of reprising a moment from the original film where you first saw it, it's actually kind of more similar to Lost World, really, where you see the stegosaurs in a retrospect. But this right here is for Guntik. This, I suppose, is another, I don't want to say admirable trait, but it's something I noticed. The texture on the brachiosaur looks much better here than it did in Jurassic Park. So it doesn't resemble really any piece of anatomy whatsoever. It actually looks like a natural creature. So I guess that's another thing this film has going for it, even though there's hardly anything that this film has going for it. And in my Jurassic World review, I talked about how Lowry, basically the tech guy who was sort of that film's Nedry, if a bit less nefarious, he was basically the best thing in that film. He was kind of the character who you were thinking, you know what, he's not so annoying. That's basically one of the bright spots in that picture. Really, he should have come along on this excursion because he knows quite a bit about how this park has been programmed and basically how it runs. He basically has the expertise in order to guide them along this venture and to help them along in their quest. Not this Franklin fellow, because I tell you, this Franklin, oh my God, this Franklin fellow. I tell you, he is so annoying. And I tell you, he screams even more than Taya Leone in Jurassic Park 3. And yes, I know that's supposed to be relatable, and him with the bug spray and all that, and you know, just him screaming incessantly, but really, it's just so grating. He should have died, honestly, in the chamber with that baryonyx. He really should have died and be eaten, because, you know, it would have made for a neat death, a necessary death, because he does nothing for the rest of the picture but whine and complain and just really make for a thoroughly aggravating character that you just want to throttle by the throat and just feed to one of these damn dinosaurs. My goodness. If ever there were an example of a character who you could just truly hate in this series, it is him. I don't care what you say. Objectively, that is just bad. If you recall in my Jurassic Park review, I said there were some intolerable lines uttered by a principal character in it that in today's world really just come across as just, why did you put that in there? Guess what? There's another intolerable line from a principal character at 30 minutes and 29 seconds in there. But it's followed up with one of the most ridiculous lines from Chris Pratt at 30 minutes and 48 seconds to Bryce Dallas Howard. He says, "If I don't come back, remember, you're the one who made me come." And on to Owen and basically his relationship with this lone raptor, Blue, which I really didn't talk about very much at all in my my Jurassic World review. I tell you, when he actually does get within range of her, and it seems like that this sort of affection that they've developed over the years is sort of worn off. I tell you, I kept playing this song in my head from Jurassic Park the game, the Don't Remember You song. Look up that song, Don't Remember You, by the Lysine Contingency. And it's just so fitting, honestly. When the mercenaries and such actually do end up, I think, shooting Blue, and she ends up being incapacitated around 33 minutes and 53 seconds just to kind of grasp onto anything of substance in this film. I was thinking, is that Bret McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I couldn't tell you. Let me know if you think that's Bret McKenzie or not, because really I'm looking for something to justify this film being in the series. Tranquilizers. Once this guy, this Ken Wheatley fella, not Roland Tembo, essentially shoots Owen in the chest with one of these. Knowing their effects on humans and dinosaurs and such, you're kind of assuming that, yeah, he'll either be out for a very long time or will just be dead because of how potent these things are. And really, when the lava scene happens, where he's just waking up and just sort of contorting his body in all sorts of different ways, and the lava is going over the original Jeep from Jurassic Park that fell out of the tree, it's just baffling. This guy should be burning up within 10 feet of that lava, much less 10 inches from it. Oh my God. This is a funny thing that I noticed. A lot of the computer sounds from the original film occur here, particularly when Bryce and this insufferable Franklin chap are sort of trying to get things back online, and they evidently escaped from the baryonics. There's also, at 40 minutes and 46 seconds, a little bit of unnecessary censorship, I must say. This film's rated PG-13, and you have a little bit like that, you're thinking, okay, that's something that's in there. And on the subject of the volcano, do people making this film know how pyroclastic flows work? You can't just be running from it effortlessly and then be submerged within it and basically emerge unscathed. I tell you, it'd be another Pompeii at that stage. As my art history teacher once told me, when I had posed a question to him, we were talking about ancient Egypt and basically all of the culture there and how it basically informed the art of that period. I was asking him about, I think, something about scarab beetles and whether they do indeed swarm people like they did in The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. And he said to me, when it comes to films, enjoy them as entertainment, not education. Had I not taken that class as a junior in school, I probably would not be bothered by that scene. But goodness, all those people should have been dead. All those dinosaurs should have been entombed in the ash of the volcano. It's just ridiculous, honestly. I mentioned the sort of weird sound mixing on the dinosaurs in Jurassic World and how it really seemed to go against the established ethics of sound design that was put into place by the original trilogy. The Sinoceratops in this movie, for some reason, has sounds from the Pachycephalosaurus from The Lost World, and it's really weird, very questionable in the bland scheme of things. And just another instance of things in the previous film that feel completely redundant or pointless in this one. Remember how I said that supposedly these gyrospheres, as demonstrated by Jimmy Fallon of all people, are supposed to have bulletproof glass? Well, apparently those people who are making this film, and it's directed by some other fellow, some Spanish fellow, J.A. Bayona, who I've seen his film The Impossible several years ago, and while that film itself was a very powerful piece, I don't understand how you'd get someone like that to direct a Jurassic film. It just seems kind of strange. Honestly, all of his prowess and poignancy that was clearly on display in that film is absent from this film. But apparently the filmmakers didn't see the previous film, because this gyrosphere, which we are told in Jurassic World is bulletproof, is easily shot by Owen with a pistol when it's submerged in water and they cannot get out of this thing. So there goes that out of the window. You're thinking, oh my God, really, what even is this? As they're getting off the island, and you see basically a recreation of The Lost World. I keep saying that so many instances of this film remind me of The Lost World. It's because it basically is The Lost World. I guess at 48 minutes and 15 seconds, I guess stegosaurs don't have beaks anymore. I've heard someone say that that's not the case and that it's a variant or something. I don't buy that for a minute. That's just lazy on their part for not referring back to the original models and such. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I tell you, there is a shot at 48 minutes and 37 seconds. It's directly out of The Lost World. And like I said, yeah, I'll just go and watch The Lost World and not this. And when they finally get off the island, they jump the ramp of the boat and end up boarding it and such and all that. I'm going to talk about this right now. The shot with the brachiosaur at 50 minutes and 56 seconds, with its dying on the island as they're leaving, which is designed to make you feel sad, because so far as I know, I think that is the original brachiosaur from Jurassic Park, and it's supposed to be like, this is the death of your childhood, and the director, I believe, and most of the people making this picture, I don't know, are adamant that that is indeed the original Brach from Jurassic Park, and this is the death of your child. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. I really just don't buy it. That was just a cheap way to shed some tears, and bad on you, folks. Bad on you. Really. That is not on. It is not on. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. And apparently, the reason for the transport for these dinosaurs, apart from the whole auction that occurs later in the film, is apparently, again, they're going to be using dinosaurs for the military. Again! No one really seems to talk about this, so far as I know. The blood transfusion, where Blue is sort of hemorrhaging on the table, and this veterinarian character, Zia, or whatever her name is, needs blood from carnivores with 2 or 3 fingers, no more than 3. And of course, they end up getting it from the T-Rex in this very kind of forced scene of just spectacle and action and what have you. I tell you, couldn't you just get the blood from either a Compy or a Dilo or a Galley, not the T-Rex? But then again, we wouldn't have a movie. Now, would we? And on the T-Rex itself, I talked about in the Jurassic Park review how the animatronics, particularly on the T-Rex, look just stiff as all get out, primarily because of the rainwater being soaked up by the foam rubber skin and what have you. But the animatronics in this, while indeed there are more of them than the last film, they just look cheap and plastic. And I don't believe that Legacy Effects were behind the animatronics here. I think it was just a bunch of English people who were responsible for this. But really, man, these animatronics, they don't look that good. They really don't, honestly. And again, I mentioned this before, the sound mixing, the T-Rex, all of its sound, and yes, that's supposed to be the original T-Rex, Roberta, as I'll call it, not Rexy, but Roberta. All of its sounds are from the Lost World. The Buck Rex, that's where they're from, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, these films need Gary Rydstrom or Chris Boyes at the very least. My Lord, it just takes at least me out of the thing. At an hour and 4 minutes is one of the most really just unusual and kind of just vexing shots in the film. The raptor Blue sheds a tear. And I don't think, so far as I'm aware, I don't think that that's possible for really any animal, much less a genetically modified dinosaur that's been resurrected after 65 million years. I don't believe that's possible for any natural creature apart from human beings or really just mammals to do. Is it? I don't know. And oh my God, Dr. Henry Wu. I mentioned how he just seemed kind of out of place for me in Jurassic World, and how, you know, he was barely even in Jurassic Park. And yes, I'm aware he plays a more predominant role in the novel, in sort of kind of demonstrating the hubris of man and what have you, but he's in this film, and what happened to him? Honestly, what happened with him at all? He's intolerable in this picture. I cannot stand him. He really should have died in this picture. They should have given him his novel death, honestly, and just have him be mauled by one of the raptors or something, because goodness me. At an hour, 7 minutes, and 45 seconds, my sentiment exactly. And then there's even a scene where this Lockwood fellow and not Ryan Reynolds are basically quarreling about one thing or another, and how basically John Hammond was right. It was an unholy thing you did. What the hell are you talking about? And yes, I know it has to do with the whole Maisie thing, but the way it's brought up really doesn't make a lot of sense to where, what on earth are you talking about? And when he actually does smother this fellow in bed with the pillow and you see the amber cane falling down, how fitting is that? Honestly, just how fitting is that? Because the whole business with Maisie and figuring out exactly what she is, yes, I know there were some kind of concept as to what actually she would be before this film was made, and really, to be honest with you, there were some things that were sort of maybe even retconned in Dominion and such and all that. It's still confusing. I still think, honestly, my idea of her being part raptor, like having some raptor DNA in there, and how she could basically devolve back into a raptor, kind of like the Super Mario Brothers movie, the old one from 1993, not this new one that I don't care about. I still think that's a better idea than what she actually is. And there's some kind of things that intimate that, that may actually even be what she is. Who knows? Oh, and also to bring back into that, I was right that she was a raptor girl, because one of the concepts for this film was that she would be a raptor girl. But for some reason or other, that was scrapped in favor of this whole clone business, and it's just really just bizarre, honestly. So we get to the auction scene, and you're wondering, how much are these dangerous predators worth? Because if you recall in Jurassic World, I didn't mention this in my review of Jurassic World, but I guess the investment in the Indominus Rex was about $23 million that they had invested into this species to basically bring it into being or what have you. You want to know how much these dinosaurs sell for? $4 million, $10 million, $21 million, $28 million. People have talked about really they should have sold for way more than that. I just thought I'd mention that because, these things should be selling at least for $50 or $100 million, because goodness me, they're bloody dinosaurs, for goodness sakes. It's just ridiculous. And I'm going to mention this right now. The Indoraptor, a creature from the future, or a creature of the future made from pieces of the past, and how really this is kind of a second go at the Indominus Rex. That's the whole reason why they were getting the sample at the beginning from at the bottom of the ocean. I tell you, really, this Indoraptor is, first of all, the idea has been done before in Jurassic World with the whole hybrid dinosaur, unsuccessfully, mind you, because the thing caused a lot of havoc and ended up dying at the end. Why on earth would you do it again? In all honesty. And just to put on top of that, this whole laser targeting system to where, you could just point a gun at your assailant and then this Indoraptor would attack. Why not just shoot him with a gun? Really, why not just shoot the guy? If that's the case. You don't need this big bloody raptor to go after it. And the whole thing with the Indoraptor, the biggest problem with this particular dinosaur or hybrid or whatever the F it is they made it far too human, really, in its behavior. And I've also read up on behind the scenes material how really some of the inspirations for the Indoraptor were like Dracula and Nosferatu. And these people are proud of that. It just is, what on earth were these people thinking? Really? Because any of these scenes with the Indoraptor where it's supposed to display its menace, whether it be the scene where he basically is tricking not Roland Tembo into thinking it's dead and eventually mauls him, or really when he's climbing on the rooftop and basically intruding upon Maisie in her bedroom and everything like that. And it's meant to be all uh, very creepy and disturbing and just scary. It just comes off as ridiculous because this isn't a dinosaur. This is a human. And on to that whole Ken Wheatley thing. Uh, right after the whole scene with the stigma lock or Stigi Moloch, whatever it is, and Pratt fighting people, which at the end is kind of laughable, I must admit that when Ken Wheatley gets his arm bitten off at 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 26 seconds, I swear I felt that in my right hand, because that was the one that actually did get bitten off in this film. And to lose my writing hand would basically be to lose my vocation. And to add to that, that moment of just poignancy is completely ruined by 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 56 seconds. The man's hair. That's all I'm going to say. Just the man's hair is all I'll say. And hammering on the point with Maisie and such, and, you have no idea what she is. Not Ryan Reynolds is saying, yeah, neither do we. Yeah, I know this is going all over the place, but I only have a few more notes left before we end this. This is a scene that I don't know if really anyone talks about, to be honest with you. Maybe a couple people do. But the scene with Blue running from the explosion in the lab, kind of like an action hero, is just hilarious, honestly. Whether that was meant to be hilarious, I don't know, but oh my God, that's just second to none in terms of comedy. And I tell you, it occurred to me that I said in my Jurassic World review that my hatred of that film was greatly exaggerated from what my actual opinion was. Evidently, it turns out that much of my hatred for that film was really, it kind of stemmed from my hatred for this film. Because if they say the first Jurassic World was an overload of nostalgia, they clearly forgot about the last 30 minutes or so of this film, because, oh my goodness, we get it. The first Jurassic Park is this groundbreaking film that will forever go down in history as one of the best ever made. Jurassic Park is one of the best, if you haven't seen it as many times as I have, in this franchise. This Jurassic Park is influencing everything we've done to this day. We get it! Another thing, and we're winding down here, I know, I'm getting tired, but Claire's moving leg injury when she ends up being speared by the Indoraptor, it looks as if that she was gored in the knee, but later when they're examining it, it's in her outer thigh. And you're thinking, what happened there? And to add to that, how the hell did she get on the roof with that injury? And when the Indoraptor is finally impaled on the horns of the Triceratops skull, and basically Blue is giving her a little triumphant roar, it honestly sounds kind of weak, really. This little yell that she gives, to where you're thinking, okay, that's something. And oh my God, the releasing the dinosaurs into the wild thing is really, at the end of the day, infuriating. And one thing I also wanted to mention, if I can find the note here, speaking on the whole endless nostalgia thing, the 4 notes, remember how I mentioned that there were 4 notes that played on the French horn, the that are so associated with the first film, that incidentally play 4 times throughout this film, and people always mention that, yeah, These 4 notes are so indicative of the first film. This takes me back to the first film. Guess what? They don't occur in the first film. They occur in a sort of a modified sense in The Lost World, but they don't occur in the actual first film. They are on the soundtrack, the extended soundtrack of the first film, but they're not in the actual film. And you're thinking, man, these people are a bunch of nerds for using music that doesn't even occur in the first film, in this film, and trying to instill those feelings into you. And the whole thing with They're Alive Like Me, that bit, to where initially they were not going to release these into the public, and because Chris is like, if you push that button, there's no going back. And Claire doesn't, but evidently it's this Maisie girl who does. That was the whole thing that made me confused as to what she actually is, because what she actually is, it's confusing. At least in this movie, honestly. And when the dinosaurs actually get out and, are basically seem like they're taking over the world and such, they escape from this mansion and the toxic gas and such and everything like that. And the T-Rex eats not Ryan Reynolds. 1 hour and 53 minutes and 19 seconds. Where'd the pterosaurs come from? There was no indication at all that they had rescued any pterosaurs from the island. So where the hell did they come from? Where were they housed? And at the end of the picture, what really made me think that this film is really the worst thing I've ever seen. This film, and this is unique to this film and not any other film in this series, this film did the impossible, to where it just made me say, you know what, screw this movie. I will never see this again until, obviously, I ended up having to see it again for this review. This film made me hate Ian Malcolm. Because, yes, he is introduced here. He sort of bookends the film itself, giving, I suppose, a speech as to the efficacy of rescuing these dinosaurs or what have you to Congress or something like that. And also at the end about people not learning from their mistakes and basically sort of releasing these dinosaurs into the world. I tell you, those speeches are great, but his very last line kills it for me, to where he says, "Welcome to Jurassic World." And that is when I decided, F this film. Honestly, F this film and everything it stands for. This is the worst Jurassic film. I don't know how you can come back from this. This is really the worst film I've ever seen, at least in this series. And the music and the credits, juxtaposed with the rather somber tone the film had throughout, is jarring. Because you're thinking, okay, yeah, it's the end times now, and these dinosaurs are here to wreak havoc on the world as we know it. And all of a sudden you hear this triumphant music. The dun 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 dun, and you're thinking, okay, this is weird. Throughout the credits, you're thinking, oh my God, what in the hell went on here? And final thoughts. Goodness. In all candor, it is a mess on almost all levels. There are some good things in there. I did mention them at the beginning. I made sure to do that just so people don't think, I don't think this film is worth anything. But it's a total mess, really. on all levels. It completely contradicts much of what is set up in the previous film, like Zack and Gray, like the gyrosphere, like even the cost of dinosaurs, etc., and makes a whole lot of that stuff really just pointless to where, you know what was even the point of Jurassic World after this? And the hybrid idea at this stage is exhausted. You can really do nothing more with it, and they did nothing with it, really, because this Indoraptor is on screen for like 30 minutes, and it's not intimidating. The fact that they made it more human and are proud of it is just laughable. You're thinking, oh, goodness, this is terrible. And really, this film did the unthinkable in that it made me hate Ian Malcolm, and I shouldn't hate Ian Malcolm. And as a result of that, I'm going to give this film a 3 out of 10. I have no reason, really, to watch this again at all. The only reason why I watched this at all is because I was going to do this series, and now that I have watched it now 3 times, now that I have to keep this bloody copy of it, I may just end up giving it away. I don't have to watch it again. Plain and simple. And so you're thinking, with just how bad this film is, and with how angry it made me, really, how can we come back from this, really, at the end of the day? Well, you'll just have to find out with tomorrow's episode of Park Week, and how really what is considered the worst entry of the franchise may end up being one of the best upon close examination, and may well even have risen this series out of the ashes and restored it unto its former glory. Thank you for watching. I know I was kind of unhinged in this particular review. It's just that this is the one Jurassic film that I truly hate. And unfortunately, I really did struggle trying to find anything in this film worth anything. But I may as well give you my genuine thoughts on it, so I did, and now I don't have to talk about this film again. Tune in tomorrow to see my review of Jurassic World Dominion, because I talked about Dominion twice before, and originally I thought I wouldn't have that much to say on it this go-around, because I had detailed my thoughts on it. But how wrong was I? And you'll find out just what I have to say on it when we get to it. So I thank you very much for watching. I'm going to string this all together and hopefully get this up before midnight, as I said. And cheers.